Good morning. My name is Tom. I come to you from the great state of Maine. I had a comment come in this morning that was a really great topic. It was a suggestion on talking about the state of Maine. The guy is from Pennsylvania. He's been a long-time subscriber of the channel, Patreon member, the whole 9 yards, and so when he brought up this topic this morning, I thought this was a good topic. What he was interested in was how is the state of Maine. He compared it to Montana. Montana being, I guess, taken over by tourists and big money and stuff like that. And he was wondering if the state of Maine, if that was affecting the state of Maine, or if it was still, he looked at the state of Maine as wide open forest that you could hunt and all of that. And he's right in both aspects of that question. So I'm going to get into that. What I'm actually going to do is we're going to make this kind of a series throughout the winter months, because the state of Maine is a big state. And what I'd like to do is talk about, I divide the state of Maine into 4 quarters, but the state of Maine divides it up for hunting and fishing, they divide it up into 30 districts. So, and I've hunted and fished and lived in this state my entire life. So that's why I can't cover the state of Maine thoroughly in one visit or 10-minute video. So, but what I was thinking was, I've hunted just about the entire state of Maine with the exception of Southern Maine. You take and cut that state in half, I've got 50 years of hunting under my belt, and there's a lot of areas in this stuff that I have fished and hunted. So what I was thinking was going over these 30 districts in the course of this winter, you know, and it'll depend on you guys, you know, if the video doesn't get any traction or anything like that. What I mean by that is if you guys just aren't watching it, then it means it's a dud topic and I will move on from there. But like with any of these videos, we started with a little series up here in the reloading room. That's doing really well, so I'm keeping that kind of going through the winter months. And I'm going to discuss the state of Maine. So let's start with, I'm going to divide it down into 4s, and then we'll get on to that in later series. He was kind of wondering, like Northern Maine, Southern Maine, I guess from his comment. I divide the state into 4 because that's kind of the way it is. You've got Northern Maine, like I pointed here on this. This is the state of Maine. You've got Northern Maine, which I draw the line right about here, Northern Maine. And then if you draw it, I guess we could actually say, well, you would say quarters, and then you break down this bottom half, you've got Western Maine, and then you've got Eastern Maine. So we'll talk about Northern Maine, Western Maine, and Eastern Maine to begin with, because that's the easiest way to chop it down. And then we will divide this northern section into a quarter, a half, and then we'll discuss that. Because fishing changes all over this state, and so does the hunting and the opportunity for hunting. And the same thing with the moose hunt. Now I know that the state of Maine would like all of the outsiders to think that we've got moose from Kittery to Northern Maine. Well, I'm telling you, we do have moose from top to bottom. But your odds of taking a moose in Southern Maine and from here down drop significantly, no matter who you talk to or no matter what the state of Maine is pushing on you. If you're from away, I think these will be great. And same thing with the deer hunting. I think a lot of people have our deer hunting kind of mixed up too when they come into the state from away as to where the best deer hunting is. So I like this topic that he brought up this morning. And I think it really opens the door for some pretty good information trading, swapping, and all of that. And I know this probably opens up quite a can of worms when you start getting into the hunting aspect of it and the fishing aspect of it. But I'm here to tell you that I've been fishing and hunting for since I was a kid. So I got a pretty good handle on the state of Maine, especially when it comes to the hunting and the fishing. And I could even go back to the way hunting used to be here in this state, and the fishing part of it. But let's get back to his comment and what he thought about if it was turning into like the state of, I guess, Montana. Now, I've never been to Montana, so I'm only going by what he brought up. He was wondering if big money has come in, I guess. He wondered if big money has come in and started to turn it into more of a touristy area than big wide open spaces to hunt. And it's like I said earlier, it's a two-phase question there. Northern Maine, and thankfully for the paper company people, over the years, I always call paper company land, but it's timberland, they have allowed the general population to hunt and fish and travel on millions of acres in the state of Maine since the beginning of time. You know, as far as my whole career as a hunter and fisherman has been all over the timberland country of this state. And when I look for a piece of property, like Beaver Creek was 5 acres in and amongst some timberland country that was somehow divided out 100 years ago and never made it into it. Beaver Creek started out, Beaver Creek, if you haven't watched my videos, is the cabin that I built 2 years ago. It started out with 10 acres, but right beside me was 5 acres that was owned by timber company. I got a hold of them, asked if they were interested in selling that 5 acres, and yes, they was. Now, I don't know how often that happens, whether I got lucky or what, but it was 5 acres that was all pinned out and was just a piece of 5 acres to them. And they was open to selling it, and I purchased it, and that's what the cabin is sitting on. And that's the kind of land that I look for hunting, because the paper company has been so free in letting us be able to hunt and fish on their land. So it's kind of like if you own 5 acres inside of 10,000 acres of timberland country, you've got 10,000 acres to hunt on that 9 times out of 10 is never going to be posted. I have never seen them kick anybody out. But that being said, we do have groups of people that have come into the state over the last 15 to 20 years and are doing exactly what this comment was brought up. They've come in with their big money and they have purchased land up in the Millinocket area, which is, I think, around 80,000 acres. And when it first got purchased, they closed the roads, they closed the gates, they took out the bridges and shut that 80,000 acres down, kicked out the bear hunters and all of that. So that is coming this way, unfortunately, from what we can see. Have yourself a sip of coffee. Now, I've always been against that. Because anytime you shut down land to hunters and fishermen and snowmobilers and four-wheelers and all of that, you're taking away something that's been here for hundreds of years that we've been able to use. Whatever your excuse, whatever your reason, it's not good enough for me for you to be able to shut down that much property. I would rather see it stay in the timberland hands where they manage the forest, because a managed forest with new growth and all of that, and boy, this opens up so much. New growth brings animals, new growth brings feed, brings food, everything is good. A forest that's not managed and cut down and hauled off will just grow up to be a dead forest, because what happens is when all the trees become mature, there's nothing on the bottom. You need to have that bottom layer of new growth that can feed the forest, feed the animals. That's why I've always been for the paper company. I've always been for clear cutting, because it works for the animals. It's not that destructive. It always comes back. That's what they're in the business of doing, is managing the forest, and they've done a good job over the years. So I'm going to steer away from that now, and I'm going to come down to Western Maine. Western Maine, and I'm talking the Rangeley Lakes area, Moosehead area. The big lake, the biggest lake in the state is Moosehead Lake. That is more touristy. So if you're looking to go in and catch some fish, the fish population in those areas has been managed quite well. I feel that the Rangeley Lakes areas have been managed just a little bit too much. And that's why I stopped fishing in that area years ago. There comes a point when you manage the fish too much that they start getting smaller. You know, catch and release doesn't really work. Catch and release means that you keep too many fish in one body of water and they just stop growing because there's not enough feed there to support a huge population. Now that's my humble opinion, but that's from all the years that I've been fishing and hunting. But there is a lot of Rangeley Lakes area now is more, and it probably always has been over the years. The rich and famous come there, we'll say. You know, they come in with their big money and they build, you know, $200,000-$300,000 camps, and they call them cabins and all that, and that's great. I'm not knocking it. I made my living off building cabins and camps when I was younger, so I'm not knocking it at all, but I'm just trying to describe what the state of Maine is. And we'll get into Western Maine a little bit further later on in this, not in this video, but in this little series. And I'll come up with some research and some numbers and all of that through the winter. You know, it's something to do on a snowy, rainy day. We got wicked heavy snow out there today. What else? So we take care of Western Maine, and then when you start to get into Southern Maine, Southern Maine, I like to say, is probably from Augusta down, at least Portland down, Portland, Maine, all the way down to Kittery. That's kind of like a different breed of people, you know. I'm not knocking anybody that lives in Southern Maine, so don't take me wrong here. But they think different than the people up north. Let's put it that way. When it comes to guns, when it comes to hunting, when it comes to our bear hunt, when it comes to a lot of Maine things. And I believe it's just because so many people have moved in from away into the Southern Maine region of the state. So the thought process might be coming from the people that come from away. Putting that as nicely as I can and being as honest as I can. You know, I can't really discuss the four sides of Maine without being a little bit honest as we work around. And then you get to the eastern side of Maine. Eastern side of Maine is the coastal area. I want to say the coastal area is a 50-mile strip of land that runs from Kittery all the way up to Canada. You've got that, and it might even be smaller than that. It's all the ocean fishermen, the lobstermen, anybody that makes a living either building boats or working out at sea or working the waterfront, all of that, the lobstermen. And I have a feeling that most people from away judge the entire state of Maine on this 50-mile stretch. They think that we're all lobstermen, or we're all fishermen, or we all own a lobster boat. That's not the case at all. The little strip of land that runs up the side of the coast, that's a breed of people all by themselves. They talk different than me, they act different than me, and they fish different than me. So that's a whole different ball of wax down there on the coast. I have fished the ocean a lot. You don't live in this state of Maine without fishing the salt water and fishing the inland waters. They kind of go hand in hand here in the state of Maine. But anyways, that's what this series is going to be about. So if you enjoy this, subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and make sure you don't catch these. I will label them up in the left-hand corner. 1, 2, 3, 4 as we go along. They won't come out every week, but I will have one every now and then, like I do up here in the reloading room, and like I do on my fishing and stuff like that. So come on back, have a cup of coffee with me, and I will see you next week in the videos.